Nostalgia is an odd experience, to be sure. And maybe you've never experienced it. It can happen to anyone at any age, but it seems to happen to older people or people who are wrestling with the idea of getting older. It might not have happened to you. If that's the case, I envy you, or at least I used to. There was a time I would have envied you for not experiencing nostalgia. Now I'm not too sure, because personally, I've been feeling nostalgic at a breakneck pace for the last couple of years. Before that, I had never experienced nostalgia at all. But now, it seems to be a regular occurrence, and I'm having trouble getting comfortable with it. Because for me, it felt like I was being attacked by feelings from the past. I don't deal well with the feelings I have in the present, so you can only imagine how that made me feel. Maybe to you, attacked seems like a really strong word to describe what that feels like, but it seems accurate to me. I really did feel like I was being ambushed by emotions that I hadn't felt in decades. I felt ambushed by memories. And it could be anything. A song, a scent, an old replica of a movie poster, even something like a long forgotten place that suddenly pops into my head for no apparent reason. All of a sudden, I felt like time was compressing around me. And of course, there's emotions that come with that. And a lot of those emotions, they're difficult to label or even categorize. Maybe it's longing, or maybe it's a sense of loss, or even mourning. I don't really have a great way to describe it. I'd even be willing to go so far as to say that it felt like a sense of dread to me. But on the other hand, not any of those. It was just a really complicated set of emotions that I hadn't experienced before. It turns out that that's a pretty good way of describing nostalgia. Nostalgia is one of these things that can sneak up on a person when they're least expecting it and hit them with a wave of memories and emotions. Yeah, the first time I felt it, I was immediately on guard. I mean, it felt like a panic attack. It wasn't though. It was just the past coming to connect with the present. And I just happened to be the conduit for that. So even though my initial impression of it was negative, I'm not one to quickly just sort of categorize things as good or bad when it comes to the human mind, because I truly believe that everything can be classified as either maladaptive or adaptive when it comes to how our brains work. And nostalgia, it's no different. I just want to know, is it adaptive or maladaptive? That's the real question for me. Because I don't take anything the brain does for granted. It would be foolish to do so. I mean, it's just too clever of an organ to dismiss anything that comes from it. And any of your initial or automatic assumptions about things that you feel because of your brain, yeah, I wouldn't hang on to those too tightly. And that includes nostalgia. And even though when I first felt it, it came on like an attack, well, I knew that it probably wasn't that. I didn't appreciate it, and I didn't want to feel it. And after I had a brief moment to kind of calm myself over the whole thing, I started to wonder, is nostalgia maladaptive or adaptive? And I realized that, without a doubt, nostalgia is 100% adaptive. Once I started to unpack it a little bit more and explore it, I started to realize that nostalgia is probably one of the primary things that we can look at as to what makes us human. Or at the very least, it makes us aware of our humanity. And that's the next best thing. It might even be more important when you really start to think about it. And what I've learned is that nostalgia, it's a safeguard against forgetting or taking life for granted. It's a fail-safe that's built into the system to help remind us that we need to seek purpose, that we shouldn't be living without purpose. Nostalgia is a trigger for making us realize that something somewhere in our past meant something to us, so much so that it imprinted on us. And in that realization, I went from not wanting nostalgia or appreciating it to understanding that it's probably one of the most important feelings that a human being can experience. And I went from not liking it to appreciating it and even welcoming it. Now when I experience it, I try to lean into it. I listen to those songs more closely. I breathe more deeply of those scents. I take in that movie poster and I try to explore those seemingly long forgotten places. Because now I understand that nostalgia, it's a reminder, not so much of those things, but to remind us that we have a past and that our past had purpose, that both that past and that purpose deserve to be remembered.